Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Dandadan Season 2, Episode 5. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we open with them performing the exorcism, and I love that you're like, alright, they're putting all this time and effort in. Is it going to work? They open up Taro. Nope, Evil Eye still there. Put him back. Redo everything over again. Did it work this time? Open him up. Nope, still Evil Eye. So now he's basically gonna have to stay inside of Taro as they try to figure this whole situation out, because they're like, Psycho is talking to Manjiro later on about like the different like people they might have to bring in to try a different ritual and stuff like that, and it just the rest are like casually eating. And I love that Ira's here complaining about how she got left out, but Momo's like, why are you even here? You shouldn't even be here eating. You didn't do anything. If you didn't put any work in, you don't get no food. And I love that. And how does Taro go about eating, even with Gigi inside of him? Like, does he actually eat, or was he feeding himself to feed Gigi so that Gigi gets substance? I actually don't know if he was feeding himself or not. But yeah, it's just kind of like the most casual thing ever, with just all the situation being what it is. And then there's also like finding out why the Mantisian, or if we learn his name is translated to Peeny Weenie, would be like the Earth way to say his name. He came back because his home planet isn't a sustainable situation for a cow to produce milk, because it's like a, I think, how does Ken describe it? He's kind of like, I guess it's like a carbon plant. It's like basically the opposite of it. Like, it's just filled with like carbon. And I love that Ken is so excited. He's like, oh my god, so does that mean you're from like this type of planet? And he's marking out about it. Even later on being like, yo, how does that UFO fly? And then you have Ira tripping about his son, because she's like, oh my god, you're so cute. So seeing both of their minds being blown for like two different reasons. But then when Taro accidentally eats something hot, we find out that Gigi is actually back, and it's like, wait, this could be Evil Eye tricking us. So Psycho grabs a cup of water and splashes him in the face, and he goes back to being Evil Eye. And then she splashes like some hot stuff on him, and he goes back to being Gigi. I was like, shut up! It's hot and cold, literally. And it's like, yes, that's how this situation is going to go from now on. Anytime there's something hot happening, Gigi stays Gigi, but if he gets anything cold on him, he immediately turns into Evil Eye. I was like, that's so crazy. And they're basically gonna have to keep Gigi like this until they perform a proper ritual, but they know like the seals inside of Taro won't last forever, because eventually like a spirit like him will eventually get to the point that he'll get, it's kind of like, you take enough medicine, eventually your body starts building a resistance to it. It's kind of the same thing. We also have Turbo Granny explaining that Evil Eye's, he's a mountain spirit, and he's extremely powerful, even being revered as a god. So the reason why he was waiting for a powerful body like Gigi's, because any other normal body he would have burned through, but Gigi's the perfect host for that, because he needs someone like high spiritual energy. And even, I believe, Manjiro saying, like, if they do manage to separate Evil Eye and Gigi, there will be side effects. Which sounds like, ergo, he's gonna keep some powers. Granted, I'm so curious to know how it will manifest in him. Just like, because Ira's power isn't a one-to-one for acrobatic Silkies, but it is to some extent. She doesn't have like control over her hair, even though her hair is long and she's acrobatic, but it's not like so it's like you get some aspects of the abilities. Ken, to some extent, has most of, because Turbo Granny's thing is her being super fast, but there was other abilities like being able to summon up those hands from the ground. To be fair, Turbo Granny's talked about it continuously, how Ken isn't using her full power, so there might be more beyond her speed he can use, or maybe just being a human taking her powers, he can only do so much. Maybe the same thing's applicable in Ira's case, or who knows how those powers are going to expand. I'm sure wherever the manga is, it's probably well been explored on what Gigi's evil eye thing is. But once again, I've never read the manga, so I'm taking this story as the series goes, as the anime comes out. So I have no idea what to expect, what like his evil eye powers are going to look like when this situation's resolved. But speaking of Gigi, you have him kind of acting like the idiot that he is. But as we learned last season, for the most part, Gigi acts the way he does because it's his way to overcompensate from like being like overwhelmed. Because he's like probably legitimately worried and scared, but he's trying to act like his doofus self. Not only for his own sake, but he's probably also doing it to kind of disarm and make everyone feel better so they're not as worried and scared. But it's like, yeah, we have to all go around carrying around thermoses now to spray hot water on them. And I love that you see Momo and Ken practicing like with the empty thermoses, like they're tossing it at him, like getting prepared when the time comes. So but basically, because of this situation, you even have Psycho apologizing because she's like, if she knew Evil Eye was going to be there, she wouldn't have sent them on their own, and she's apologizing. But you know, Gigi's like, no, like you've done a lot for us, like so, like you don't have to apologize. So that's why she's probably feeling even more motivated to see this through. I mean, once again, she cares about Gigi, but in general, she feels like this is her fault. You know, for not realizing how dire the situation was. But I mean, hell, you Taro and a Peeny Weenie came in clutch at like resolving this situation last episode. So you know, any fault there, I think you easily made up for. But I get like she feels extra responsible in this regard. So. But they're making it so that Gigi can't leave the city because her powers don't exist, because the powers of the like land god she gets from are from within the city limits. And so the moment Gigi leaves, her powers would dissipate, meaning the seals won't work. So he has to stay. But once again, they're running out of time before they can just like keep this thing inside of Taro, which Taro wants to be able to see Hannah, but Psycho's like, no, there's a curfew at 10 and I don't want her seeing some weirdo in the middle of the night. He's like, yo, 10 is way too early. I do like that she's just like in the middle of essentially the living room. But then we find out about Peeny Weenie that him and his son are living on a farm nearby. Psycho hooked him up with like a job in like on a farm. So they're like, yeah, we're gonna go. And Okarun is like tripping, like, oh my god, like, you know, how does that ship work and stuff like that. And Ida is still being like, oh my god, your son is so cute. You can go back home for all I care. But they take off in the ship, and I'm like, but aren't you living here on Earth? So what was? And they immediately come back, and they like beam themselves down fairly close by. So it's like, what was, I was like, you guys living on Earth, so why the hell are you taking off like you're going back to your planet? I was like, that was completely and utterly unnecessary. So I thought that was awesome. The next day, they go to see Gigi's parents in the hospital. In fact, Psycho had them moved to a hospital fairly close. And Momo and Ken have like the cutest moment in the back seat where like their finger, like her finger touches his hand. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." She's like, "No, it's okay. Like, just put your hand back there." And he does, and she inches her hand closer, and she starts like hand dancing her hand all over his, like squeezing it and everything. He's like, "I'm sorry, I don't know the rules of the game you're playing." She's like, "What are you talking about? I'm not doing anything." And it's not until Gigi gets their attention that they kind of get scared and go back to their like facing like their direct, like the opposite direction into the windows. It was like super adorable. But we also see that based on the rear view mirror, like in the mirror in the car, Psycho had a pretty good view of their hands, so she saw what went down and she doesn't say anything, because I think there's a part of her that's probably like, okay, she wants something to happen between, she's kind of secretly cheering them on, being like, oh, she wants, you know, probably her granddaughter to be happy. I don't know, maybe she has some other thoughts that we just don't know, but I think she probably sees how it is, and so for her it's kind of like, oh, you guys have made further progress. Like, the fact is that you've even gone that far. I think after that hug last episode, and after everything, you know, after like being scared to death that she thought she lost him, I think it puts things in perspective. And so Momo's super forward now, and I guess that's going to be probably be the bit going forward, that she's going to be a lot more comfortable, and Ken's the one that's going to be kind of, he's always going to be caught off guard, and they're both going to be bashful. But I think this is showing like, yo, Momo's going to be a little bit more forward going, well, forward. And Gigi's saying all this stuff about his parents, like, oh yeah, like they're too rowdy, they're this and that. The fact of the matter is, them being sick will probably like be for the better. She's like, are you saying that just to say? He's like, nah, I'm totally fine. And then he gets in front of his parents and he bawls his eyes out. Understandably, he was scared, but knowing his family is finally okay and everything, and for the most part, even though there's still some residuals from it, like, you know, the situation for the most part has been resolved. And at that same time, we see on the TV, we find out there were no deaths and no injuries. So that whole situation was resolved pretty nicely. The volcanoes calmed down. They're still like, the alert's still at a level 4. And then we find out the Keto family had been arrested. I was like, oh my God, like, what's the resolution to that? Except Mama Keto, Naki, is still on the loose. I did not notice this until other people pointed it out. I didn't realize that Evil Eye broke her arm. And we see her arm is just like flinging around. I'm like, ugh. And then she even gets it caught on a little twig and she starts flipping out and destroying the twig or whatever that caught her arm. I was like, that's disgusting. But then she says an interesting line where she was like, I've been trying to grow that worm for 200 years. I was like, ayo? I was like, wait a minute. Because my thing, I brought up like maybe episode 3. No, it was episode 2. I was like, oh, that's just her ancestor that just happens to look like her. It's like, no, that has been her the entire time. I was like, what are you then? And then she proceeds to rip her face off and reveals herself to be what appears to be an alien. I doubt it's a yokai. I think it's an alien because I think she's like, you've made an enemy of the subterraneans. So that immediately made me go, okay, so does that mean the rest of your family are aliens too? Why they look the way they do? Because then I was about to say, then what was the point of the whole... So you were growing that completely regardless of like... You're not some person that was deluded into believing the sandworm was, you know, for the sacrifice of keeping the volcano from erupting. It's like, no, that was all bullshit from the beginning. So that's why I'm wondering, like, are the rest of your family humans and maybe they... maybe you've made it with humans and you've given birth to regular humans and because you are the way you are, they look the way they are? Or why do they look like the lizard people that they do if that's not even what you really look like? So that's why I'm like, are they actually aliens or are they humans that you did something to them genetically to make them look like that? But I wonder, because like, why else? Because if they were subterraneans, why would she need to keep up this BS, like, continued lie of, hey, we need to sacrifice people to the Great Serpent if she knew it was bullshit from the beginning? So it could also be that those aren't her biological children, that maybe like over the years, like maybe she adopted like other people, not unless there was like a real Keto family back in the day and she just possessed their leader and she just keep like, I don't know, maybe that Keto family knows what she really is and they believed her bullshit about, you know, sacrificing to the Great Serpent. Like, what else was she doing that for? Like, she was making this thing big for a reason. And now Momo has made... The way she makes it sound like you've made an entire species your enemy. So, that's interesting. I mean, that also kind of coincides with a theory that Ken had last episode where he's like, the reason why aliens haven't straight up invaded is because yokai are basically their mortal enemies. And because the world is occupied with yokai, it's kind of kept them at bay. So an alien and a yokai basically went to battle last episode. So it kind of makes a lot of sense in a way that they're kind of mortal enemies, that you add in the personal grudge that Evil Eye has towards Naki. So there's some deep layers to that whole situation. I'm so curious to find out like the whole totality of it, like I said, whether or not her kids or the rest of that family, or whether or not they're aliens or not, or like, there's still so much to explore with that, but I thought that was a great twist. I would have never guessed that. I mean, because people are thinking like, well, they look the way they do, but then you see them running away from the cops and you're like, oh, they're just perverted humans. But it's like, oh, no, there's something more going on here, so. Either that same day or later that day, I think it was later that day, it might have been the next day, but I think it was the next day, Momo ends up, running into Ken, and she's like, hey, let's walk to school together, and Ken's just super nervous. It's like, they kind of come a long way to him being so embarrassed last season after the Turbo Granny situation, and him being like, oh, she can't be waiting at the school for me. It's like, no, like, back, let's walk to school together. I actually want to talk to you about something. And, we find out a little bit more about the Gigi situation, that basically was a Hayashi has to be performed. And I love how that was depicted in Ken's head, that basically some of the background people playing the instruments are wearing sepia costumes, but apparently no one wants to perform the Hayashi, because the whole point is like to distract Evil Eye. Because I guess you play into the fact is they even say it, he is like a newborn inside of Gigi's body, which also plays into he was a kid when he was sacrificed. So if you play into like what he like, you know, he wants to play and dance, so he is still basically a kid. So if you distract him with this thing, it'll make it easier for them to pull him out. But Momo and Ken have to be there to kind of hold him down, keep him in place. But no one, I guess, knowing who Evil Eye is and what he's capable of, I guess everyone that can perform the Hayashi is too scared to perform it. So they've got to find a way around that. And then they get jumped by Momo's friends. And it's kind of super adorable. One of them grabs on to Ken. It's like, give Momo back to us, because she spends so much time with Ken. And then like her other friend is like, yo, did you see this volcano thing? He's like, and Momo's like, I don't want to talk about it after everything that went down. I'm sure just because the exhausting situation that came about it, you know, Gigi being stuck the way he is, and also Ken, for a moment, she thought he was dead because of the volcano and stuff like that. But then it's also like, hey, a UFO was caught. And it's like, wait, what about the earthworm? There's literally nothing about that. So I wonder what happened afterwards. Like, if there was no notice of it, but there was a UFO, which at one point the UFO was literally carrying the carcass of the earthworm to put out the fire. So I'm like, how did that completely escape? But, you know. Anyway, going back to school, we're catching up with Ira too, and she's about to go into her classroom. Everyone in the class looks to her and then immediately ignores her, so she's ostracized. I mean, you know, because I'm sure this has been going on the entire time, ever since she made her confession back in episode 10, but of last season. But, you know, Momo, to make her feel better, is like, oh, come on. And you see, like, you know, drags her away. And you see Ken kind of glaring at the classroom and walking away. Because, like, Ken knows, like, despite her personality, who Ira really is. And I think also as someone who's ostracized by his entire class, who don't even acknowledge his existence, I think it cuts a little deeper for him, meaning, like, you guys suck. It's like, yeah, she did a shitty thing, but you're supposed to be her friend. And you guys have, as a unit, like, yeah, because you all gather around her because you thought she was awesome and popular, and the moment she made a mistake and did something bad, the fact that she owned up to it and it was like trying to defend Momo, was like, yo, I'm the one that badmouthed her. I'm the one that spread that rumor. Don't talk bad about her. And don't try to do the right thing, ostracizes her. But you see that look on their faces, like, I don't know if it's shock to them that, like, wait, despite what she did, you still want to be friends with her? Like, that just, and that shows you how much of a better person Momo is than anyone there. Because I think a lot of those people are playing in, or kind of, they basically help foster Ira's shitty personality. And she's trying to pretend like, hey, yo, you're basically dropping my popularity by being around me. And it's like, oh, that's complete and utter bullshit. She's like trying to act all cool and stuff like that. But then she like immediately switches to cute mode, being like, oh, but I totally thank you for talking to me, Ken. But then Momo's like, yeah, the thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, because we need to keep eyes on Gigi, but my grandma and Nora Manjiro can keep eyes on them 24/7, so I want them to be at rest. I want you guys to come live at my place. And Ken, understandably, is bashful, being like, what? Oh, that's crazy. And then Ira's like, oh, you're stupid. Like, why would I even want to do that? But I guess it's because she's probably, like, all her friends at school are they're very superficial relationships. And so, like, her and Momo, because they do butt heads, it is kind of like a genuine relationship. But I think it's also because she's probably, like, I wonder, those friends, did she really interact with any of them outside of school? So, probably, like, going over to Momo's place the few times she has that we've seen has probably meant a lot. And now you're, like, asking me to stay over? Like, you know, we don't know what the situation is with her dad. Like, you know, maybe her dad's not home a lot, so she's probably often home alone. So spending time at a place where there's going to be a ton of people. Like, Momo's like, well, you guys don't have to. And they're like, nope, we'll do it. We'll sleep over. And, you know, Ira's trying to pretend like everything's okay. And even Momo's like, yo, like, if being around us is causing you trouble, like, with your friends, it's okay. And Ira's almost like, don't be stupid. Don't be so selfish enough to believe that my world revolves around you, that, you know. She even says, like, yo, it's my own fault that I'm in this situation. But I think it's a good thing, because it showcases that the friendship you're going to have with Momo, and even though you like Ken and maybe Gigi and all that, it's like those are going to be genuine relationships. And it kind of shows, like, the fragile nature of the friendship you have with them, because it is the thing of you guys are bonded by some crazy shit. Like when you go through something like that, those are bonds that are very hard to break versus like all this other superficial relationship. The fact is, once again, you did a shitty thing and you did kind of like try to make up for it, and they're not trying to even hear you or see. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what that looks like going forward for Ira in her class, because once again, it wasn't just her quote unquote friends. The entire class turned their back on her. So. But getting back to Gigi, the seals are now burned away, so there's no point in Taro staying on him anymore. So Taro's trying to put his body back together. Gigi's kind of happy to finally be free. Ira makes her way over. She's got all her stuff packed. I love that she, like, the moment school was over, they got here, she got here like a couple minutes after they did. So she must have rushed at the end of school, went home, packed her stuff, and immediately came. Which, once again, there might be something darker there, like in the regards of, like, yeah, maybe she's like lonely, because like maybe when she goes home, she has no one to hang out with because maybe her dad's not there. Who knows? She might come from a rich family, so she might only have nannies or something. So I think, like I said, that plays into why she like accepted it so quickly and was also very bashful instead of being very prideful like she usually. I mean, she was playing prideful, being like, "Oh, I'm not going to," but immediately caved in and immediately moved in there. So it is this kind of beautiful thing of they're all together and eating and having fun and checking in on each other. It's a really beautiful thing that like Momo and Ira are talking about, like, I think some like stuff for your face and stuff, and then like Gigi and Ken are talking about playing games, and then here's freaking Turbo Granny asking about her cushion that Momo's like, I have no idea where it's at. I wonder if that's going to end up being plot relevant or whatever, because she keeps bugging Momo about it. Either way, it's like, yo, hand me the soy sauce. They slow-mo it as Ken brings it over and drips some, but it falls on the table. And she's like, no, not that. The other one. Oh, okay. Do it again, but the smallest drop lands on Gigi, and he turns into Evil Eye, and that's where the episode ends. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, everyone's here together, so they're going to have to join forces. I mean, it was a hassle to take down Gigi in the first place. Granted, he won't have the spirits here. At least he shouldn't. But he's still tough on his own physically. So, but he shouldn't have this. He shouldn't be able to make his spirit ball like he did episodes 3 and 4. Or rather, 2, 3, and 4, because I forgot he transformed into Evil Eye at the end of episode 2 and was able to use that. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the next episode has in store for us as they try to rein the situation in. Can they, like, what would, once again, they still, I guess they have to try and spray him with cold, something hot, while, like, but he knows that now, so he's going to be avoiding whatever hot thing they throw at him. So, but they're not going to have to face him alone because, well, Peeny Weenie is not too far away, but also, they've also got the benefit of Psycho is here, and they have Ira to back them up too. So how this all plays out, we'll have to wait to see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.